Did you know the Ravens are scared to make a decision that could change everything this season? And the worst part is, this decision involves a player who was brought in to be a key piece, but has caused more trouble than expected. What's going on behind the scenes in Baltimore? And why is this fear possibly the key to the team's future? It's not just about Diontae Johnson's performance, but something much bigger, something that could directly affect our rivalry with the Steelers. Stay until the end to understand what's at stake and how this could change the Ravens' season once and for all. Go Ravens! When the Ravens brought in Diontae Johnson, many fans were full of hope. After all, he had been a solid receiver in Pittsburgh and seemed like the perfect addition to improve Baltimore's wide receiver. The idea was for him to bring more speed and experience to the offense, especially in tough games. But right from the start, things didn't go as planned. In his first 4 games with the Ravens, Johnson barely made an impact, catching only 1 pass for 6 yards on 6 targets. The impact they expected just didn't happen. The situation got even worse in Week 13 when Johnson was completely absent in the game against the Philadelphians. Even with Rashad Bateman leaving early due to injury, Johnson didn't step on the field, which left many surprised. The final straw came when it was revealed that Johnson refused to play, citing his frustration with his role on the team. This behavior was deemed unacceptable by the Ravens, who immediately suspended him for 1 game, causing quite a stir in Baltimore. For a player who was expected to be a key piece, the situation couldn't be more complicated. Now, the big question is, what should the Ravens do with Diontae Johnson? His suspension for conduct detrimental to the team has raised doubts about his future in Baltimore. The team still believes he could help, but his attitude and lack of production have made the Ravens question whether it's worth keeping. And with everything unfolding, there's uncertainty about what comes next. Will the Ravens cut Johnson, or is there a chance he can redeem himself and become a key piece in the offense again? This leads us to the next question. If he's cut, what would the impact be for the Ravens, especially in their rivalry with the Steelers? Now that Diontae Johnson's situation has gotten even more complicated, the Ravens face a huge dilemma: cut or keep the player on the roster. Many believe that cutting a player with Johnson's experience could be a mistake, especially since he could still help the team, even if he hasn't shown it yet. The Baltimore team is considering its options as the bye week approaches, giving them time for some careful reflection. The truth is, the Ravens need a fully committed team for the remaining games, and Johnson's attitude has left them questioning if he can truly be part of it. On the other hand, there's growing concern among the Ravens about what could happen if they decide to cut Johnson. The biggest worry is about the Steelers, Baltimore's AFC North rival. If Johnson is cut, he could be picked up by Pittsburgh, and that could be a huge problem for the Ravens. Not only because of his experience as a receiver, but also because of the risk of him sharing valuable information about Baltimore's offense with the Steelers. That could give Pittsburgh a strategic edge, and with how tough they've been to beat, especially in matchups between the two teams, that's a real worry. The possibility of Johnson becoming an information leak has put extra pressure on the Ravens, who are asking themselves, is it worth the risk? Still, the Ravens believe Johnson has the potential to help, but his lack of commitment is a concern. They will have to decide if he's willing to be a positive part of the team, or if they'll continue to deal with his issues. Could the fear of him giving more intel to the Steelers be the reason the Ravens hold on to him? This leads us to an interesting point. How might the rivalry between the Ravens and Steelers directly impact Baltimore's decision about Johnson's future? Well, we're past the halfway point of our video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like on this video yet. It's really important for YouTube to keep recommending my content to you, so go ahead and hit that like button. It's free, and it helps a lot. Thanks. Now let's get back to it. The situation around Diontae Johnson in Baltimore gets even more complex when you consider the possible interest from the Steelers in bringing him back. Even though things didn't end well for Johnson in Pittsburgh, he knows the system and has a good chemistry with the players. So, it wouldn't be surprising if the Steelers tried to bring him back, especially to strengthen a position that still has weaknesses. Pittsburgh is in good form this season, with a real chance to make the playoffs, and adding another experienced receiver could be exactly what they need to reach their goals. If Johnson is released, the Steelers would likely be watching closely. The big concern for the Ravens is that, aside from bolstering their team, Johnson could share important information about Baltimore's offense, giving Pittsburgh a strategic edge. With the two teams set to face off in Week 16, this is a scenario the Ravens definitely want to avoid. They've had enough trouble facing the Steelers in recent years, And the last thing they want is to hand over more tools to their rival. Even though the Steelers may not need more intel, the threat of Johnson being able to provide insights into the Ravens' plans is a very real one. The situation becomes even more tense with the upcoming matchup between the two teams. Will the Ravens hold on to Johnson out of fear that he could make the Steelers even stronger? With the rivalry heating up and both teams still in playoff contention, this situation could have a huge impact on the Ravens' future, not just this season, but in their ongoing battles against their AFC North rival. So, what do you think, fan? Now that you know the whole situation, the big question remains. Will the Ravens risk cutting Diontae Johnson and let him strengthen the Steelers? Or will they keep him, despite all the trouble he's caused in the locker room? The team's future might depend on this decision, especially with the heated rivalry in the AFC North. What do you think the Ravens should do? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on everything happening in Baltimore. We'll keep a close eye on this story, because the next chapters could be critical for the future of the team.